Hello, Highview. Welcome. Welcome to the second Sunday in the new year. And we've been talking about change, which often is a discussion around this time of year. No, I'm not trying to get you to do New Year's resolutions. I'm not into that. But it's a time of year where we often contemplate change, at least, even if we don't do a silly thing. We often think about change, at least. And at certain times in our life, we yearn for change. We really want to change this or that in our lives. You fill in the blank. Last week, we talked about envisioning change. And this week, we want to talk about tips, techniques, and traps. All right. So that's where we're headed. Tips, techniques, and traps. One of the sayings around change that I really like goes like this: change is hard at first, messy in the middle, and gorgeous at the end. I love that. I love that. And that's so true about getting coffee cream out of your coffee. It's hard. It's really hard. But I am now into day 4 of black coffee. And, I'm still very much at experimental stage at some of the preparation stuff, which involves experimentation. And I've done some Googling and research on different kinds of coffee and taste and throwing in an ice cube and those. And I'm starting to envision myself as learning to love this stuff. Whoa, 4 days in, I can't believe it. I was so stuck. At any rate, I'm starting to like it. Isn't that crazy? Okay, change is hard at first, messy in the middle, and gorgeous at the end. And that's where we're going. All right. The best Bible verse about change, what is it? We covered it last time. Yes, that's right. 2 Corinthians 3:18, not John 3:16, but 2 Corinthians 3:18. But we all, with unveiled face, beholding as in the mirror the glory of the Lord, are being transformed. We're being changed into that same glory. What is the glory of the Lord on the mountain? Well, the glory of the Lord is character, and particularly the lopsided character of God. He is dramatically lopsided in his loving, gracious, forgiving, slow to angering-ish. He is a lopsidedly loving God, similar to Christ. In Christ, we see someone who is radically loving. And what are Christians supposed to be known for? Their politics? No. They're supposed to be known for being. See how they love one another. It's that love that we are being changed into. We got to do something. We have to envision it. We have to see it and take it into and embrace it within our lives. We also rooted last week's discussion in the apocalyptic power of envisioning change. Envisioning change is what all of the research says. You ain't going to change. You can't change unless you envision it, unless you can see it, unless you stumble onto something like the game, the movie, and you go through a process where all of a sudden you see, whoa, I thought I was rich, but really I was poor. And that envisioning of the change is crucial for putting things together. And we talked about that in terms of the Church of Laodicea in the book of Revelation. The Church of Laodicea, the apocalyptic seer, gives them a vision of change. It gives them a vision towards the end of the book of the fall of Babylon, one city, and the rise of the New Jerusalem. Now, it is no accident that within the book of Revelation, the paintbrush, the the hues and colors, the textures in those visions are taken from the 7 letters. I trace the echoes and images. What it's saying to the Church of Laodicea is, you think you're wealthy, and they were wealthy. They were a very rich, wealthy church, but really, they've got their values all messed up, and they're not using the wealth for God's kingdom. They're hoarding it, and they're greedy, and they're hurting other people with it, like Babylon. And the point is, you're looking more like Babylon than the New Jerusalem. And in fact, the New Jerusalem has all this wealth, but it's going to endure. So to Laodicea, the apocalyptic seer says, buy some good gold, buy refined gold. And he's messing with them. He's messing with them to understand that they need to envision a change in their lives. And we could go through each of the 7 churches, in fact, and see that envisioning that change in the later apocalyptic visions is all about what connects the 7 letters to those apocalyptic visions. All right. We rooted change and its envisioning into a couple of texts. This week we're going to talk about tips, techniques, and traps. And what we want to do is to say these come from some of the very best research in science, in behavioral science, psychology, in terms of how human beings change, but they also connect very much with theology. Now, in the 7 tips, I can't do that in every single one. I could, but I'm going to do it here and there, just so you see, there's something going on here. Maybe God, as the Creator, knows how we're wired, knows how human beings work. All right, tip number 1. How do we go about change? Well, tip number 1 is snowflakes. Think snowflakes. Snowflakes are amazing. Science has shown that no 2 snowflakes are the same. And really, human beings are like that. If we look at the genetic coding of human beings, no 2 human beings are exactly identical. And that's true of change, that what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. I was very reluctant in my journey towards dropping 65 pounds. That's my goal. And I'm in the 70s right now. I want to get down to the 60s, 160s. I was very reluctant with telling you what worked for me. Okay. The reality is several things did. Basically intermittent fasting, working with software on my phone, an Under Armour software that helps me calculate, helps me calculate calories. So I learn, okay, what things are a whack of calories and what things are not. That helped, and doing certain exercise helped. I used to exercise to death, and I never lost weight. All I would do is gain muscle, and I would stay the same, But putting those 3 things together for me worked and is working well, and I can stabilize, and I can take it down, and now I'm getting rid of cream in my coffee. So each step along the way has helped. But I'm not going to say do that. You have to discover what works for you. Consultation with a medical doctor, consultation with friends, but you're a snowflake. We're all snowflakes. So let's not try and necessarily replicate what someone else has done. On the other hand, the flip side of that is look at models, get mentors. Models and mentors are so important for change. We need to find people who have done the change, and if possible, someone to walk through that change with us. That is so very important, and why Highview and why church is, I think, can be a vibrant body where we're not judgmental to each other about need for change. We're all, in need for change of some sort, but we we can be a community that helps one another through that, and we can be a community of networking, so that we ask around who's taking the cream out of coffee. How in the world did they do it? I was stuck, and there is a God thing going on here, because we also, of course, can look to Christ as our high priest, as one who will walk with us through the valleys. We can look to God and Christ in terms of that lopsided character, what is important, both abstractly in terms of the lopsided loving character of God and Christ, but also in terms of the specifics of the life of Christ. But Christ doesn't tell us exactly how to change our lives in terms of coffee, so we need to find incarnational love within the community of Christ and help each other. All right. So models and mentors are so very important. Tip 2. Tip 3 is the tip of specifics. If in the area of selling homes, location is so important. Well, in making changes, specifics are very important. You don't want to just say, okay, in this year, I'm going to be more loving, like Jesus. Now, that's a great end zone goal in life, but good luck on making changes. One of the reasons that New Year's resolutions, and many resolutions to change, whether they happen at New Year's or anytime, is that they're not specific enough. They're not specific enough in terms of reaching that goal. So be specific. Nix on more loving. As you can see, you might have thought initially that getting cream out of coffee was almost trivial. For me, not, but it was very specific, and the more specific we can make the elements of change, the better. All right, specifics. Tip number 4, little changes. Little changes. A whole pile of little changes add up to big changes, and that's what we want. We want little changes. Another way of putting it, I like that word incremental. Small incremental steps forward will get us there. Compared to the all or nothing trap in change, we often fall into what is called the all or nothing trap, where we think, I got to go to the gym for an hour and work out because I know that's what I need. Yeah, you do. I do. But on the internet, you can go to YouTube and find a whole array of 7-minute workouts. Now, that's the place to start. Can you imagine liking or even loving a 7-minute workout? You have to do the envisioning. At this point, maybe if you can't envision going to the gym, and my gym is closed. So I've had to re-envision that whole area. Well, this is a tremendous God thing. Incremental ethics, an incremental movement towards redemptive things in our life is all about the way God frames Scripture. I've spent my life researching, writing on slavery texts and the women texts and the corporal punishment texts and the war texts, and over again I've discovered that God is moving his people in incremental ways, in ways that are 10, 20 yards down the field, the football field, but not all the way to the end zone. That is called incremental ethics, and it's helping people change in reality. So something's happening here with the best research in terms of how change working. My goodness, that's what God is doing within Scripture. Amazing. Little changes. A great tip. Add friction. Tip number 5. Very important to add friction. We could put it this way, that you need to make staying the same harder in your life. Do some things to make that harder, and to make change easier. Let me just give you one example. If you want to go to the gym, get your bag together, put everything in, and stick it in the trunk of your car. All right. Well, once I learned that trick, and I learned it several years ago, in reading up about change, actually, and I wanted to make some change in this area, and okay, resistance and friction are very important, and you can use them in helping make change. Right now, because I'm stuck here, I put down my mat for workout right in front of the TV in our bedroom, and I trip over it almost every day. It's there. It bumps. I put my shoes at the bottom of the stairs that I slip into, have them unlaced, right, ready to go to do certain workouts on the stairs that are stretches, etc. Friction is your friend. Use it. Okay, stick stuff where it makes something easier to change and harder to stay the same. Right? Change number 6 is this: physical worlds. Sometimes, this is the way we put it, sometimes change of the physical world around us enables change of ourselves. And of course, this is so important to embrace, with how God will ultimately move us to an entirely new heavens and new earth, which will enable even greater change. But I remember talking to Joel. He was so despondent over his first grades coming back from university, first year university, and he just moped around for a week, and he says, "Dad, you're a professor. Can you help me write better?" And I chuckled. "Yeah, I think I can help you write better, Joel." "Okay, I want to do it." And he actually has become an excellent writer, far better than me. He's won awards. Now, what I did is I broke it up into small changes. And the very first change I said is, "Joel, you have to change the world around you." I said, "Your bedroom is a mess." I said, "You can't think in there, let alone write." And I said, "Okay, I'm going to give you several changes along the way. If you do that first change, I'll take you to the second one. If you don't, game over." I said, "Here's what you got to do with your bedroom. You got to make it into a lean, mean writing machine." Okay. And I talked about physical changes in the bedroom in order to write better. And sometimes we have to change the world around us. I have a dear friend who's a young 30-something guy who's an addict, and I love him. He has struggled with alcohol as well as stronger stuff, and lived in a marina on the edge of Lake Ontario. Not a good scene, because the whole scene has a bar right next to it, and he would go there all the time, and all his friends that were there, and he eventually had to move to a campsite, okay, and a totally new environment, and it's where he could still get in and out of work, but it changed everything, and it allowed him to not have those same trips and triggers and all those things. Sometimes we have to change the world around us in order to give ourselves a chance to change. All right, tip number 7 goes like this: reach out. Sometimes, if you're still stuck, get professional help. It is well worth it, and it does cost, but you can find counseling services such as Tyndale that often offer sliding rate counseling based upon income, and is quite reasonable, done by students in counseling programs, so it's part of their internship. If you're still stuck, get professional help. Why? Well, because sometimes we all need an extra pull. Sometimes we need a Christopher Robin in our lives. All right, that's it. Sermon's done. Dr. Bill has to go for counseling. See you later. All right, Russ, thank you for seeing me once again. And
actually, Bill, I don't think you paid your invoice for the last time.
Oh, whoops. I will try to come up with that.
Couldn't help that one, Bill. Sorry.
Good point. You have leverage for getting your clientele to pay. No more help. So excellent.
That's
So
not quite how it works, but anyway.
yeah. Maybe that's not what. Okay. So I want to be a little bit more vulnerable in this one. And maybe this is not the question the guy should ask, but I wrestle from time to time, and probably Marilyn does more, about how I can be a better husband. All right. I want to be a better husband some days, and some days I don't do it well. So if you want to just shut it down right now and say there's no help for you, Bill, that would be fine. But I thought I'd bring it to you and see what you had to say.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because there's been some research specifically on openness to influence. It's a new construct. It's actually not new, but it's been researched more recently. And what they found is that couples, when they are actually trying to, when they are in the dating days, that they're both very open to influence. They're both very open to changing for the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And then something happens. They get married.
No more openness to change.
And sadly to say, Bill, is that women remain open.
Women
to
remain
influence.
open.
Women remain open to influence.
Or
but
just
men,
remain.
their openness.
Oh, okay.
But men tend to drop in their openness to influence, specifically from their wives.
Wow.
This not all. This is not that all men don't want to change, but they might listen, but then it's like, well, it's just who I am. And so men typically have a harder time being open to influence with their wives than wives being open to influence from their husbands. Sadly to say, that's what the research says. The Bible says, men are kind of stubborn too, but anyway, but
all the parallelisms with donkeys.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, we can, it can be. So the very fact that if we have role models within our life, that if we have these role models that can allow us to be open to change, open to becoming a better husband. And of course, sometimes the expert of that is our wives. And in terms of,
this sounds to me like it's skating on dangerous ice here.
it is.
Ouch. I think I'd like to go back to cream in my coffee.
So when we think of
he ignored that, Heidi. You know.
So part of this is, yes, we might want to become better husbands. I think that's a great goal. And sometimes we can even feel good for just having that goal, and we haven't changed a thing.
That's the best.
So when we think about that, what might that look like, Bill? When you think of becoming a better husband, what pops into your mind in terms of?
Yeah.
what you
Okay.
think that might be for yourself.
Well, in one area, I that I don't always do well. I think I'm getting better, but I don't always do well. Is when I'm trying to listen to Marilyn, and sometimes I just have this knee-jerk reaction to try and fix it. So I try to fix it with advice about, okay, do this, and I'm reminded of that video on, I think it's on YouTube, where a nail is in the forehead of a wife, and the husband says, "But I can fix this." And she's outraged and saying, "I just want you to listen to hear me," but this nail's sticking out of her forehead. I'm in pain. I want you to hear. And and I, I'm getting better at that because I know the phenomenon. I I I've heard bits and blurbs about it enough to say, bite my cheeks and be quiet, but I'd like to do better in that area.
So part of this is that video actually doesn't help you, because that video doesn't help
I
you
know
because it
reinforces stereotypes.
re-envisions a
Yeah.
stereotype, and it re-envisions that your rationale for the way that you do things is right.
Right. Well, but it is mocking it too. So it is mocking it.
It is.
But there is a double aspect. Yeah.
Yeah. So the humor in it is funny, but it can actually weigh in as a reason for not changing.
Yeah. If you take it as legitimizing rather than delegitimizing. Yeah.
Yes. So one of the things that if you want to change, and we've talked about the stages of change and realizing, okay, I envision this change, I can see it, but I may not know quite how. And now it's about elements of
experimentation
that we were talking about, and figuring out some hows. And as a part of that is looking at, why don't I want to change? What holds me back? So the question that I have is, how does fixing Marilyn serve you?
I think it makes me feel good. I think I mean I respond to I have responded to a lot of issues in our home, the generation of John, by trying to fix things around us. Building a walkout basement with wheelchair accessibility, etc. So I've done a lot of fix-it stuff in trying to address problems, and I guess it makes me feel good. It makes me feel good that perhaps, as the guy in the nail illustration, sometimes it's impatience on my side. Like, why are you talking about this when the nail's sticking in your head? I mean, I've sometimes, and I've heard this a dozen times. I know I need to hear it for the emotive aspect. So sometimes it's impatience, and I have struggled with impatience at times.
So could it be that you're trying to fix it because you want to feel better about yourself, rather than actually listening to her for the purpose of helping her feel better about herself?
Man, if I knew you were going to go this direction, then yeah, that's entirely possible. Yeah, absolutely.
So so in some ways, sometimes our fix-it mode that I get into as well.
We need that vulnerable. Can you rerun that? You get into it as well, Russ?
Did you need that on tape? I think you have it.
Yes, please, please. Good. I'm glad we caught that.
That we can end up doing it because we're really doing it for ourselves.
Yeah.
It's actually a selfish act. And so realizing that, who are we really helping when we are fixing it for somebody else? And who's the one that's in control? Is it the other person or is it me? And am I fixing because it's my way of trying to control my world around me? And so looking at these deeper questions opens me up and opens you up to the possibility of looking at how change and we need to address every element of who we are in change. So the way I look at it is from a biopsychosocial spiritual model.
Biopsychosocial spiritual model.
And biology means, biology of course is my body. So if I can't help in certain ways for my wife, and it's because I don't have the physical strength, maybe I need to do something biologically to help in that change process. And there's all kinds of things. And sometimes it's, that I'm reactive to my wife because I have depression. And I need to be on antidepressants in order to be a better husband for my wife. That's a biological perspective, right? It's not the full cure, but it's a part of it. We live in a fallen world, and our bodies are falling more and more as we age, and so this is a part of that change process. So bio, and then psycho, of course, is what is our mentality?
Just like Zoom is
and
falling
we're
apart.
starting up. Yeah, you gotta love Zoom.
Yeah, gotta love Zoom.
And so it helps you to listen more, though, because when there's these glitches.
Yes, I'm hunched over. I'm gonna have to have back massage afterwards.
So the psychology part of it is what's my motivation? What's my emotion? What am I getting out of this? And looking at, are there anything, any selfish elements of this? I love what the psalmist says, see if there is any wicked way within me and lead me in the way everlasting, right? It's that self-looking in terms of realizing that I think I can, I'm just trying to fix. What's wrong with that? That's what, men are supposed to do in their families. And we can come across as so self-righteous when in actual fact, it's
fixing us rather than,
it's really for our own purposes.
Right.
And so we need to look at that. That's a psychology part of it. And then the social part of it is the fact that, if I can get with other men who are trying to do the same thing, it supports me in my process and in my change. And I start I was part of a man up group here. And this was a question we were dealing with for a long time. How do we be better husbands? And realizing that, and we would challenge each other.
Was that a man up group in your church or a man up group in your community?
No, in the church. And so men meeting together, and there'd be a little bit of Bible study and prayer, but it was really to support our own change processes, so that we are seeing and becoming the kind of men and husbands that we really need to be. Now, am I there yet? No. That's a never-ending kind of process. But socially is do I have the supports for my change? And socially also is asking, sometimes we end up loving our spouses the way we ourselves want to be loved, and that we need to look at what is my wife's needs? Do I actually know what they are? And I might be assuming, this is what she needs, and so therefore I'm fixing it the way I think she needs it, when that isn't it at all. Right. When you have a scratch or an itch on your back, and your wife scratches on the left shoulder, but the itch is on the right shoulder, How does that feel? Annoying. And that's what we're doing when we're fixing.
Yeah, got it.
So
So to ask her, oh, that's a dangerous one. What?
And the spiritual, of course, the spiritual part.
Yeah.
And the last area is the spiritual, and the spiritual, of course, is a realization that we are to become more like Christ. But many times we can't do it on our own. And so this becomes a spiritual quest in terms of allowing the Spirit of God to help change us, but also it's about letting go. It's about surrendering. It's about, no, I can't fix my wife. I can't fix her life. And that I release her into God's hands, and that my job is to be a support, not to be a controller. And that fixing may be a form of actually controlling, trying to control my world. But in actual fact, it's not helpful to hers. And so letting go of my need for control, which is a spiritual process. Yes.
I don't think I can come get much counseling from you anymore, because first of all, you charge way too much. And you asked me about that, but payments. But secondly, you just unearthing so many things, which is very helpful, because really, again, it's about seeing and opening our eyes to. Once I was blind, but now I see. Seeing both how what we're doing presently is problematic. Maybe that's a euphemism for bad, and also envisioning change and envisioning a different new world. Putting on apocalyptic glasses and seeing the present through that, and seeing the future. I love this discussion, because it reminds me, I think, it reminds me, in blending theology and psychology together, it reminds me that maybe God has some connection with human beings.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he knows how we're wired.
Well, I would love to teach a course on the neurophysiology of the connection between theology and the spiritual world and neurophysiology.
Whoa. Well,
the interconnection of how the brain and theology actually work together. That would be cool.
That would be fascinating. Tag team it. Yeah. Thank you so much, Russ. Big hug to you and to Tina. Thank you. And thank you on behalf of Highview as well.
Take care. Love you, Bill.
Love you too.